So, it's October, and you know what that means. Christmas decorations are now available? No, dummy. It's spooky season, and instead of talking about horror games, because horror games make me super scared, and I end up taking off my headphones and start gaming as far away from my monitor as possible before inevitably turning it off. So we're not gonna talk about horror games. We're gonna talk about mystery games instead, because it's horror adjacent, kinda. There's something that tickles my brain when it comes to figuring out the mystery. I like gathering up all these different clues and then sitting down in my big red thinking chair and trying to figure out who did it before it's revealed to me. Mystery in video games is really interesting because you can play and immerse yourself in the world where everything happens in. You just met a super cool character and you really like them, and then what's that? They end up dying in the next scene? Well, hold on a second, this killer can't keep getting away with it in my fictitious video game world. I think a lot of video games in the mystery genre are done very well, but I think some games just shine in certain aspects compared to one another. Some games just might have some really good atmosphere, while some games just might have like a really good investigation scene, or they might just have an overall very good story. So let's talk about it, or I guess I'll talk about it and you can sit there and listen. So grab some popcorn or whatever you have, I don't know, and we'll get to it. We'll talk about video games. Woohoo! Video games. Now, before I start rambling like a crazy person, these right here are the games that I'm going to be talking about. And I'm going to be spoiling some random parts in these games, so if you don't want to get spoiled, then I suggest turning in that detective badge of yours and walking out of my office. I'll wait. Oh, hold on a second. The magnifying glass stays with me. So we're going to start with a pretty low ball. If you've ever dipped your little toes in the mystery genre of video games, you've probably heard of Danganronpa before. You play as one of the three protagonists in the series, and you're just living out your school life with a bunch of super talented kids until you inevitably start killing each other. You have this bear that sounds like a scuffed Mickey Mouse now telling you that you must murder to get out of this killing game. And I know if I was in that situation, I probably wouldn't want to be stuck with this guy over here who might as well be the ultimate psychopath. So yeah, I think I'm trying to get out as fast as possible. You start off as 16 students, and each of these students have a talent in the form of an ultimate. Like, you got the ultimate swimmer, you got the ultimate Dorito hair, and like the ultimate Giga Chad. There's also an ultimate gamer as well, so I guess that's kind of cool. Danganronpa definitely knows their audience. So then the killing game starts, and so it's now your job as the main protagonist to figure out who did the killing, and if you don't, well, everyone kind of pins the blame on you. You investigate the crime scene and its surrounding areas, and then you eventually get into the class trials. In these class trials, you and the rest of the cast are standing around in a big circle while the cameraman's in the middle, basically getting a little crazy with it. He's getting a little carried away, zooming in and out of some of the faces. And you, as the main protagonist, are poking and prodding at everyone's alibis and trying to figure out, you know, where they're lying or if they're actually saying the truth or not. All the evidence that you got from the investigation phase are called truth bullets, and the way it works is you have these truth bullets and you need to shoot someone's statement and tell them, no, that's wrong, and basically own them with facts and logic. Danganronpa creates what I think is a pretty chilling atmosphere. You have all these students that don't really want to kill each other, and they're just kind of waiting and waiting and waiting until the bear basically gives them a motivation to start killing, and that's why things happen, is this stupid bear. Another game that does atmosphere very well is the first game to the Zero Escape series, 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors. The game basically works as one big escape room, which I think does a really good job of creating that dramatic atmosphere. The game begins with you waking up in a small room on a ship, and you just notice that you have a Ben 10 watch on your wrist, and what's that? The room is now flooding with water. So yeah, now's the perfect time to do some puzzles. Woohoo, we like puzzles. Once you escape that flooding room, you're met with the rest of the cast who also have Ben 10 watches with numbers on it, and they also don't know why they're there in the first place. It's not until Zero comes up on the intercom and starts telling the rest of the cast, hey, you're now participating in the nonary games. And everyone's like, what do you mean? Similar to Danganronpa, you're put in this unknown situation playing some random game with these random ass people, and now you need to seek a way out. There's always some tension in the air because a lot of these characters just don't get along, and some of these characters are forced to get along because only certain numbers can go through certain doors, and that's kind of necessary because they've got 9 hours to do this.
It's 10 o'clock then. That means it's been an hour since Zero's little announcement.
The game will always constantly be telling you and reminding you that, hey, you've got 9 hours and you need to escape in 9 hours. And a lot of these characters will be panicking and freaking out. And also the music gets really, really dramatic at times. And I mean really dramatic. There is one true ending to the game, but there's also a variety of different endings, which make it very interesting, to say the least. These other endings definitely add a lot of confusion and tension because it leaves you hanging with what the heck is going on. Also, it serves as a way as the game telling you that you did your math wrong and you went through the wrong door at the wrong time. The game definitely tries to be as stressful as possible. Now here's the thing, I could put any mystery game under this category because, you know, there's always some form of investigation, and of course mystery just naturally comes with intrigue, but I think these two games do intrigue and investigation pretty darn well. The Obra Dinn is a super unique experience, and honestly, if you haven't played this game, I really just recommend just clicking out of this video and just playing it for yourself because it's really just that good. The way it works is that you play as an insurance investigator and you need to figure out what happened on this ship. You're given this pocket watch and a book, and you're just kind of left to go and just investigate. The way the pocket watch works is that it allows you to use the skulls and bones scattered across the ship, and it basically allows you to relive the events as it happened. And with the book, you're given an absolute unit of a list of people that you need to identify, of how they died and who killed them if possible. But what really makes it for me is trying to figure out the question of how did this all happen and why was this ship so gosh dang cursed. The game even starts at the end of the story of the boat. It shows the captain going absolutely sicko mode on 3 of his crewmates.
You bastards may take exactly what I give you!
He murders these 3 crewmates, and not only that,
Please forgive me for everything.
but he also ends up shooting himself at the end, which is just like, how the heck did we even get here? This is insane. Also, something that the game does really, really well, it will give you a blank screen when it's showing you a new scene, and what you're left doing is just staring at this blank screen, and all you can do is listen to all the noises happening in the background, which I think is super cool because it adds such an insane amount of intrigue because it's just like, oh, I'm hearing these explosions, and then now I'm hearing all this yelling, and then what's that? Someone is getting torn in half? In the Isomnium Files, you play as Abyss Detective Kaname Date.
Your special agent, Kaname
Date. You immediately start off the game investigating a corpse in an abandoned carousel in the middle of nowhere, and the big thing is that this corpse has a missing eye, and that's kind of weird because this happened before. While investigating, you notice a child hiding in the middle compartment, which ends up being Mizuki, Date's adopted daughter, and she was holding a bloody ice pick.
Mizuki.
And it gets a little weird because she's right there and the body's right here, and it's just like, uh-oh. So Date brings Mizuki back to headquarters to question her further, but for some reason Mizuki can't talk. Abyss is the organization that Date works for, and what they do is they use somniums or dreams to investigate crimes.
I belong to a special investigation unit called Abyss, Advanced Brain Investigation Squad. We explore the human mind with state-of-the-art technology and research.
It's a pretty interesting concept until you realize that dreams aren't probably the best way of finding information because they tend to be unreliable and a jumbled mess of things. I just remembered of a dream that I had a little while back, and the way it goes is that I stole the script to Cars 7 and the creators of the movie wanted it back, and so my job was to deliver the script like a UPS driver from one side of the country to the other side of the country, while essentially having wanted level 5 levels of bounty on my head. First off, I want to know why 6 other Cars movies were made before this one, and why the heck was Cars 7 so important that they put maximum level security to come after it. So yeah, I don't know, Date, Kaname Date, if that's your real name, try figuring out this mystery. I don't know if you can, because this one's pretty difficult, I think. Date syncs with Mizuki, and besides the somnium being more or less nonsense, the most important thing here is that you can go down this left path or right path, and the game definitely changes based on what path you go down. In my playthrough, I went down the left path, which definitely makes the game more interesting.
Everyone's dead.
You meet all these sorts of characters, and each person you meet basically they end up dying. So you meet person A and they die, and then you meet person B and they die, and then person C's over here is like, yo, what's up? And then they die as well. And you're just like, what on earth is going on here? This leads to the game calling this the annihilation route, where everyone dies. And I was just left there just confused, because I was just like, I just started playing the game and now everyone's dead. How could this possibly even happen? And the only thing that links all of the killings is that they're all missing their left eye. And it's super crazy. But I just think the way that I's direction took right off the bat, at least for me, when I went down the left route, was super intriguing, and it definitely made me go full detective mode and try and figure out, okay, so there's a similarity here, there's a similarity here, okay, now that character's acting really suspicious. So yeah, I had a lot of theories when I was playing through the game, and so that's the reason why I put it in this category, because I thought it was just as intriguing as the Obra Dinn, but in like a different sense. So this game right here is the main reason why I made this video in the first place. Somnium Files, the Nirvana Initiative, or in this case I'm just gonna call it I2 because that whole name is too much of a mouthful for me to say. Also, this game is gonna be giga spoiled, so if you haven't played I2, I recommend clicking out. But if you want to listen to me ramble a little bit, we're gonna start rambling. Okay, to begin, I want to say that I actually enjoyed I2 after sitting on it for a little bit. Admittedly, when I was playing through the game, I was not having that much fun. I think the game is actually done pretty well for the most part. The reason why I didn't like it so much is because a lot of the plot points and just the game as a whole just didn't make a whole lot of sense until I got towards like 70% of the game. It's probably like how you read the title to this chapter and you're just like, how is this relevant to mystery games whatsoever? And it's not until I tell you that I'm talking about the CSGO player twists that it starts to make a little bit more sense. So yeah, we're talking about the twist, and if it's done well, it makes you go, what? Whoa, hold on a second, that's crazy. And if it's done poorly, you're kind of sitting there like, oh no, I don't like this, I hate this, it doesn't make sense. Well, what's happening? I don't get it. I2 follows two different characters. You have Ryuki, who's this new character to the series, and he's this up-and-coming ace detective, and you have Mizuki, who was in the first game, and she comes back as one of the main protagonists, which is pretty cool because I like Mizuki a lot. In the beginning of the game, Mizuki is in this soccer field, and in the middle of the field is half of a body that belongs to a character named Jin Furroway.
Yeah, I'm sure of it. I'll never forget. It's the left half of his body.
His half of a body was found 6 years prior, and now his right half of the body is now found here 6 years later. So we definitely got a weird mystery on our hands. So that's the introduction of the game, blah blah blah. And now you play as Ryuki, which is interesting because the game kind of branches down two different paths, but you can't really go down Mizuki's path without going through Ryuki's path because you need some information from Ryuki's path to get to Mizuki's path. Now, I don't want to do a whole retelling of the game because a lot of events happen, so we're just going to jump ahead a little bit, but basically you meet this character and she's pretty weird and she doesn't really add a lot to the plot, I think, because she just tries to break the whole fourth wall a lot. And then you meet this Minecraft Steve character, and basically every time that I interacted with him, I really didn't want to because he's very weird, and I'm more so thinking, how the hell is his skull built like that? And then you meet this guy, and this guy's really weird because he starts stalking like another character, and he just is won't stop. He just won't stop stalking this one character, and he won't give up. I don't like this guy at all. This character as well, and then she starts dancing and singing and something like that.
Here my friend got herself a boyfriend. They're going out for barbecue on the weekend.
I don't know if this is a banger.
And then what's that? This guy that was stalking the girl, he's now trying to propose to her.
So, I've decided. I'm gonna marry her!
There is so much that I want to talk about. But let's just go back to the actual story, okay? So at about halfway through the game, you're finished with Ryuki's route, and you still don't get a whole lot of information, and I kind of guarantee you that if you did play through the game, nothing, and I mean nothing, makes sense at all, even now. It's not until you finish a certain point in Mizuki's route that the game starts to make a little more sense, because it does this.
In other words, it's not like that. It's like this.
Holy moly.
That's a big twist, right? Yeah, so that's the twist, and when I first played through it, I kind of stared at it and was like, okay, I don't get it. What happens here is you learn that all the events weren't told in the right order. Essentially, the game has events that takes place 6 years before current day, and then you have the current day events. And you were led to believe that all of Ryuki's storyline was in the past and all of Mizuki's storyline was in the present. But that's not the case. Now things start to get a little weird, because if you start thinking, well, how is it possible that Mizuki was in the past 6 years ago? And this is where twist number 2 comes in.
No, don't worry about it. So, what's going on here?
So that's actually not Mizuki in the past, and you're led to believe that it's Mizuki, but it's actually her clone named BB. And the game actually did try and hint to you that it wasn't Mizuki, but it wasn't the most clear, I thought. The first one being is that Mizuki and BB's voice is slightly different, and I didn't pick up on this whatsoever. It wasn't until Mizuki and BB were both interacting with each other that I was just like, oh, okay, their voice is kind of different.
Huh? What's wrong? What isn't wrong? Fair enough.
Hint 2 is that Mizuki actually has a gunshot wound on her leg, and in any of the scenes in the past, BB doesn't actually have that same gunshot wound. So that was the second hint, but I didn't really notice this one either, because I was too busy being confused by the rest of the story that I wasn't really paying attention to that really small detail. But they did try and foreshadow, hint it, I guess. And the third hint that I found was that Mizuki makes this offhanded comment to another character, and she says something like, oh, well, I care about my little sister as well. And if you played through I-1, you know that Mizuki doesn't have a younger sister, so it's just like, well, hold on a second, that sentence doesn't make any sense. What is she talking about? And that's when I started getting a little suspicious, but I mean, at that point, I was just like, whatever, I think the game's just being kind of funny about it. And you might be wondering, well, what's the whole point in all of this? Because you talked about all these really good aspects of all these other games, and you get to I-2, and you're just like, here are all these bad things. And so, this is what I wanted to say. I thought the twist in I-2 was very, very interesting, and it kind of left me sad, because I thought it could be really, really good, but it just ended up being really contrived. I thought the idea was very unique, and I just kind of wish that it was executed a lot better. But in I-2, I ended up just being super confused the whole time, and when they revealed the twist to me, I was already just not interested and just exhausted because there were just so many other plot points that the game tried making you go down, and it's just like, I don't care anymore. Should the twist be easy to guess? I don't really think so. I think if the creators hide the twist well, it's better overall. Should I always be able to guess the twist? I don't actually think so. I actually really prefer the twist to I-1 a lot more, and the reason for that is because it was much more simple and to the point, and honestly, it didn't leave too many plot holes, I thought. There were still a couple things, but more or less, it was pretty cohesive. Now, this leads me to two games that I've purposely left off this list, and there's for good reason. These two games are probably my favorite mystery games just ever in general, so we'll now transition to talking about those two games. And these two games are my personal favorites. We have Ghost Trick and we have The Outer Wilds. And in this section, I'm not really going to talk about these games too much because I really think they should be experienced for yourself. It's just more so like, hey, these two games are really good, please go play them. So Ghost Trick was a Nintendo DS game that was released in 2010, and when I found this game, it was right off of the back of finishing the Ace Attorney series because it's made by the same director. And when I first picked up the game, I didn't really have too many expectations because I don't know, I didn't really hear about it too much before. But then after playing through it and finishing it, I actually think it is such a gem of a game, and there's just so much to love about it. When I first booted up the game, I immediately knew that it's something special. The game just oozes so much style. And when I first heard that main intro theme, I was absolutely jamming. You have all of these really cool characters. I mean, even take this character over here. His name is Missile. He's a cute dog. I mean, how could you hate him? He shows up every once in a while, and whenever he shows up, I'm always happy to see Missile. The very, very small gist of it is you play as Cecil, however you pronounce his name, and basically you died, and your whole objective is to essentially figure out how you died. And the way you do that, since you're dead and now you're a ghost, is by possessing all these objects around you. The puzzles itself aren't too overly complicated, but I think they're very creative, and the way you figure out these puzzles are very cool because you have a time limit of when you can move to certain areas. And so you need to possess things at certain times to get to point A to point B. It's very cool too because the game gives you that ghost vibe, and you can mess around with a lot of characters by possessing a phone, and then you make the phone ring, and then you'll have a character go over to the phone and they'll be like, oh, what's going on here? And then they don't really hear anyone on the other side of the phone. They're like, oh, okay, whatever. And then they hang up the phone. I don't know. It's fun to pick on some of the characters. The game is really cool. I love the game a lot. And I'm going to say the same exact thing for Outer Wilds, but I'm going to be even more vague because this game is something really special, and it's so hard to say anything because the experience is just figuring out everything for yourself. The way the game works is you are this alien and you start on this planet, which is basically the equivalent of Earth, and you start exploring. And every planet or comet or sun is very interesting to explore because they all have their own little quirks and something special about it that you need to figure out. Also, the sun goes supernova every 22 minutes in the game. And then like the game repeats itself and you start again on your home planet and then you go exploring again. It's super cool because you're asking yourself so many different questions like, why is the sun going supernova? Why is this planet falling apart? Why can't I just wipe my memory and play this game again for the first time? I don't know. I actually wonder how many times I said super cool and cool in like all these sentences here because I think I've said it like a billion times, and when I'm reading my phone, which has the script on it, it doesn't have cool anywhere in there. It's just me going off the script and being like, I love Outer Wilds, it's so much fun. But yeah, it's great. And honestly, if you've played this game before, you probably know what I mean. And if you haven't played this game before, please if you have to play any game, this is the game to play. I don't really have too much more to say about Outer Wilds and Ghost Trick because there really isn't too much of a mystery as to why these two games are very good. Well, that's my rant on video games, and this kind of end portion is, I don't know if I'm going to put this in here, to be honest, because I just kind of want to talk a little bit. So, it's interesting because I didn't expect to make this video at all, but it kind of happened because I was playing I2, and I really just wanted to talk about video games in general. This part is going to be mostly unscripted. I don't really have a script for this. The phone's gone. I mean, the phone's gone. And I really just wanted to talk about this channel and what I want to do with it. I kind of want to just upload as much as I can to this channel and see where it goes because I really do enjoy making videos. When I made that Palace of the Dead video a whole year ago, and I know I wanted to make a part 2 for it, it's just really hard to get clips because Palace of the Dead is hard, and it's very frustrating when you don't get to like floor 190, and it's just like, I had to go through all of that again to get clips, and yeah, I could get clips from some other people, and like I could do that, but I really just didn't want to do that because I wanted to be more or less organic. And my main point being is I want to try and upload as much as I can to this channel in this next year and just kind of make this YouTube channel a personal project for me. This whole getup was very, very different, and I've definitely learned a whole lot from it by just kind of recording. So hopefully I can do more stuff like this, but yeah. To anyone that actually made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching. I really, really do appreciate it. And yeah, I like mystery games.